I want to thank everyone for coming. First thing I must tell you is one of our presenters, Ken Cedeno, is not going to be able to make it. He became ill today, and he promised to come back at another time, which is great. It's too bad. He's really a wonderful, wonderful photographer and a better guy. Really a great, great guy. But he's feeling under the weather tonight. So tonight we are blessed by having Ted and Nune showcasing their new book on Armenia, and which they will give us all the details. I just need to tell you that I always thank the folks at Pro Photo Daily, Photo Shelter, Epson, American Photography, and Archive Magazine for being with us for all these years in helping us out in a variety of ways. So with that, I give you Ted and Nune. The show's yours, guys.
Okay, so should we share the screen now?
Yep. Tell us about your book, how you came up with the idea, and
Okay.
Also mention your website so where people can purchase the book, everything, please.
We're all here. All right, can everyone see now?
Yes.
Super. Okay, so I'm Ted Andresian.
And I'm Nune.
And we want to first, of course, thank Frank for hosting us again on Projections, and just make a note that Frank was our first ever reviewer in a portfolio review, and he introduced us to the New York community, and we want to blame him for anything.
And thank you.
And thank you, of course, and we're going to thank him too.
Yeah.
That's nice.
One thing, we prefer to have questions as we go along. It kind of feels more natural for us, and if there's something that we're going to cover a little bit later in the presentation, we'll say so and hold off on that answer.
And you can put your questions in the chat room, and we'll get them to you, everybody.
Right. So we come from different backgrounds. We're both Armenian. I'm born here in New York. Nune is born in Soviet Armenia, and we met in 2010 after we had both bought separately Nikon D90 cameras, which I would say the person last week called them janky, but I guess by today's standards they're kind of janky, but we love them, and that's the camera that brought us together. So,
and our project is today we're presenting is called Stone and Candle. It is about Armenian monasteries. So this is the map of present-day Armenia with all the locations we photographed for this project. It has 65 locations in it. This is map of Armenia as it was during Soviet Union, and our locations, you can find it on our website. They're a lot more than the book or any kind of presentation can show, but you can go into details and let's say if you click one of them, you can reach out for the more images.
So
and this is
the collection of images that we have on Ganzasar, and they're all on the website, and we have only a couple in the book.
Yeah. So
and how long did it take you to shoot all the monasteries? How long did it take the whole project?
We started in 2015, and we did our last shoot in February 2020.
Right before COVID.
Right before COVID hit.
Yeah. And Armenia, book contains only 40 of the monasteries, and it's only 86 images. It's published by Terraver. So Armenia was a lot larger ages ago. You can see from top left in a circular order, it kept changing borders. It went from sea to sea to split Armenia to during Ottoman Armenia was the one where we had Ottoman Armenia was still people have living memory on it. That's when Armenian genocide happened and Armenians were driven out of their land, and the Wilsonian Armenia was a short-lived border. But these changing borders were probably one of the reasons the fact that Armenia is in the crossroads of the civilization was one of the reasons why Armenians were adamant about preserving their identity.
Right.
And when these maps were taken from the open source, it's called edmaps.com. And probably because of that, changing borders, Armenians accepted Christianity first as a state religion in 301.
So this monastery, this is Horvath. You can see in the background here, that's Mount Ararat, where Noah landed his ark. The story is that Grigor Lusavorich was thrown into a pit by the king, and he stayed there for 10, 15 years. Miraculously survived, yes, with an old woman bringing him bread every day. But he ended up being able to cure the king, and the king then adopted Christianity as the state religion. The pit is still there. They cleaned up the dead bodies and the rats from the bottom, and there's a ladder now. You can get down there if you're interested.
And the monastery later was built around that pit to commemorate the person who spread Christianity, Grigor Lisavorich's memory.
Right. So in the 4th century, Armenians started building monasteries and churches. And one of the points is that a lot of churches and monasteries were built with stones from Mount Ararat.
We'll get to it later.
Right. And there we go. So
this is our beginning. This is our journey. So we met in 2010, young and innocent. And this was the first monastery we visited together. It was Tatev Monastery. And this is now 9 years later. Armenian monasteries were more than religious institutions. They were places institutions which preserved Armenian identity and culture. They were even called universities because they were scientific and cultural centers at the time. Mm-hmm. So, for example, Tatev Monastery, which was one of the largest centers in Sunnic region, in the South region, by 15th century, it included studies of humanities, social sciences, philosophy, oration, grammar, literature, history, calligraphy, art of books, art of illumination, painting miniatures, murals, study of music. It had like a multitude of studies, and it was just one of many.
Right, and they became symbols of endurance and cultural heritage and connection to the land, among other things.
And we could get into any of these now? Are they all open? Or
they're all open, yeah. And if so, Tatev is an amazing place, and it's several hours from Yerevan, but it's worth the trip. There's now a tram that let's go back to this for 1 second here. We'll show it later on. But there's a tram that goes across the gorge. We have an image here with the gorge a little bit later. Yeah, so everything we're showing here, you can get to.
We'll get to.
You can. This one you can get to fairly easily. It's also several hours.
Armenia, you definitely can get to.
Right, one way or another.
Yeah.
So this monastery is Goshevank. It was founded in 1191 by Miktar Gosh. He was an educator and an author of a code of laws, and he also wrote popular fables. And one of the outstanding things that he did at the time was to write in his code of laws regulations protecting women against domestic violence, even back in the 13th century.
The building on the left side is actually a library. It contained a multitude of books. It was a repository of books. So these monasteries were also places. They had scriptoriums and repositories.
So here's what's left standing of what was thought to be Gladzor University. You can see up on the front left side of the screen. This is what's left of what were considered the auxiliary buildings or who knows what they were housing.
In these places, we were alone in the winter, and we're isolated. We felt very connected with the spiritual world, and we felt very connected with our ancestors who actually built these places. We were thinking, when we were there, we were thinking about the pilgrims, we were thinking about monks who lived there and how much harder it was then than now. It basically, they were a connecting bridge for us through a history. When we get to these places, a lot of them are isolated, and we sometimes felt like mountain climber would feel if when they are on top of the mountain, you feel big and small at the same time.
Yes, that's right. And this was not an easy place to get to, just to know, especially at this time of year.
And do you guys have a scout with you, or do you know where you're going, so to speak, or do you have a fixer?
We're actually going to cover that when we go through a little bit. But yeah, the answer is yes and no.
Yes, depends. It is always depends.
So this is a short video that gives some kind of idea of what people were thinking when they were choosing their locations. They were remote, they were isolated, they were looking over the gorges of places. So it's not just the stunning views.
It's not just the stunning views. If you pay attention, you're gonna see the ramparts, and you're gonna see how they are strategically placed, because they are overlooks. You see the natural defenses, and you see the ramparts, because they're always on the lookout against invasions. And during invasions, the parishioners, villagers, were finding a refuge in these monasteries.
So here is the Tatev monastery that we talked about in the beginning, the one where we met.
The
first one that we visited.
You asked if we can reach here.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the gorge it overlooks, and there's a tram that traverses this gorge.
Yeah, today there is a tram. Before, it was quite a fortress.
Yeah, well, the first time we were there, the tram wasn't. It was still under construction.
Yeah.
In 2010, and they opened it in like 13 or 14, something like that.
And did you ever think of using a drone?
Oh, this is actually.
This is a drone photo.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah,
so,
we do the drone doesn't fit one image. We very often end up taking multiple of photographs, even with the drone, and then stitching them in one panorama.
So for any photographers out there that consider using drones, when we're a lot of the time when we're using the drone, we try and take shots that don't make it look like you're using the drone. So you don't, it's like when you use the fisheye, you don't say, oh, I'm using the fisheye. Oh, that looks like a fisheye picture. It's the same idea with the drone, but some are obviously a drone shot. This one is not, but
yeah. So
well, this is Ambert Church and Ambert Fortress. They're located on the slopes of Mount Aragats. It's about 7,500 feet above sea level, and you can see that it overlooks another valley in a gorge, which forms a natural defense. It's I think its original settlement was prehistoric.
Yeah. Original settlements were prehistoric.
So in each of these monasteries, is there a little village that sort of maintains the monastery? Like, how is that kept up?
Sometimes they are so isolated that they had their own buildings where the monks lived. A lot of large monasteries had their own buildings, like auxiliary buildings. They had their scullery, they had their halls where they held meetings, they had their libraries. Everything was kind of like self-sufficient because they wanted to be away from the village. Usually the churches are the ones which are built in the villages. monasteries, by definition, were built away from the villages.
There are a couple that are in the villages
They're
also, but
it's more of an exception than a rule. There are like a couple of northern monasteries which were built in the villages.
And are some of them still active?
Some of them,
yeah,
they
Noravankas,
they are still active.
Yeah.
Of course, the monks now don't live in same kind of structures because those structures are historic. So whatever is preserved, they're historic structures. Though not many, majority of auxiliary buildings are not preserved.
Right.
Rarely. You'll see later on, we'll point it out. But for the monks, they built a separate living quarters.
sometimes in caves, and we have some shots of those too.
So this fortress had, oh, can you go back for a second? I want
Yeah, I just have a question from Howard. The color of the landscapes look very muted. Is that a function of the time of year the images were taken, or was that achieved in post?
Yes and no. Some of them are achieved in post, and some of them are time of a year. And also a lot of them are long exposure, which kind of softens and mutes the shadows.
Right. This particular day at Omberd was raining. We were lucky to get much of anything.
Yeah, we
We
were
were-
just like basically shooting from under umbrella.
Mm.
Yeah. But in general, we tried to have a consistent color, and whenever we weren't able to achieve in real life, we tried to like bring it to the same tonality and mood in a post.
Right.
And as you guys shoot as a team, how do you come up with the decision this is the spot to take it from?
We usually, when we get to a location, we'll scope it out. We'll look at the maps. We'll try and figure out where the sun's going to come from and where the light's going to hit. And we're, often wrong. But we'll go to a location, and then I ask Nune where she wants to set up, and then I'll set up someplace else. And
I get the first pick.
she gets first pick. I fly the drone, so
It's harder for me to drag the tripod.
Okay. So you guys have your own little routine, your own process on when you come to a location.
oh yeah.
Yeah, we do have a process, but it doesn't always, we don't always follow because you get there and then something is like out of place and then you have to improvise.
Right.
But in general, we do have a process.
Yeah, and I would just add that one of the nice things about shooting in Armenia is that nobody kicked us out from anywhere.
Yep, that's the first and only country where we weren't kicked out.
But you guys are also speaking the native tongue, so that must give you a little bit of leverage as well.
Not really.
No,
Oh, okay.
no,
So it's just always,
well, Ted obviously doesn't look like they always figure him out. They always know that he's a foreigner. They
Right.
always like this. They pick him out, and they would always invite us for coffee, food. Depends how far in the village we are.
and where are you staying? In between the shoots and at the shoots. How does that work? The logistics of that.
From the hotels.
From hotels to friends to not camping, but it's staying with friends, staying in some kind of home base, staying in hotels.
Okay. There you go, Linda.
So this is another like an example of using the natural defenses, just a little 5th century monastery perched on a cliff, like not much remaining of it.
Yeah, we have a little close-up of this later coming too. This is Hunavank. It's situated in a valley on the hillside where two rivers join. This is one of the things that they do is they don't build on the tops of mountains, they build on the slopes of mountains because
mountains in top of the mountain is considered sacred, and putting a monastery on top of it would have been considered sacrilege. So that's why it is always just a little bit below, but still hard to get to.
Right, this we were close. We were only able to get drone photos from this location because it was just off the road by too much.
So as we see the seasons from now to snow, is that indicative of you being there for a long period of time, and the seasons are changing in that period of time?
We were there. We started shooting more in the early summer, May, June. By the time July rolls around, the skies are this postcard blue and the grass is a postcard green. So we have a lot of postcardy pictures that we just didn't include. And then one year we were there in the winter and we shot and we loved it so much. We went back the second year to photograph specifically in the winter in some of these locations. And that was when we were there, February 2020, just before COVID hit.
So
But
what was the
to-
motivation to shoot in the winter? To just have a different landscape with the whiteness of the snow? To give you variety?
There are several reasons, actually. Some of them are technical, some of them are
Situational, I
and
would say.
some of them are more of ideological. Like the technical is the light is much softer and the winter sun is low, and we don't have a control of a soft box or something as portrait photographers have. So always clouded or the low sky was easier to photograph. That was the technical
You don't
part.
get the harsh shadows that you do like in the summer season.
That was the technical part. The other part was the places were so empty. We felt very connected. We felt like it's not overrun by tourists. We can be left alone with our thoughts. We can left alone with our, connection with the place. And at the end, snow has very deep symbolic meanings, from like being a new beginning to having a veil of bride to what snow is so poetic.
Mhm.
So there are several reasons behind photographing in snow.
So we just have a couple more here about being on the gorge, but you can see how it is that they built this right to overlook the gorge. But what I want to point out here is that it's not that short a drive from where this monastery is. You can see it in the lower left corner, and going up to, you see where the mountain is, and it's snowy there, and it's just a little bit higher elevation, and that's where this is. It's the same gorge looking in the other direction. So all the way down on this gorge, on the right side, you can see this monastery.
Two monasteries very close to each other,
Separated by the elevation of the snow.
Good.
And on a more clear day, you can see Mount Ararat. Here it's barely visible. It was a little bit cloudy.
Speak a little bit, guys, about the book and what size the book is with all these images in it.
Oh, well, we're gonna get there.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can talk about it. The book is
Oh.
book is this size.
Okay.
Okay, it's probably larger than A3.
It's about the size of my MacBook. Yeah.
11 by 9. It is 88 photographs and 86 photographs,
112 pages.
12 pages. It has a little description about all these monasteries, each of them which is included in a book, some historic references, something about the structures. It has a forward and an artist essay. So
we're trying to sell books here, remember.
Oh. It's super high quality paper.
Yeah, Kara Verlag did an amazing job on it, and they had we worked with their designer. We went back and forth. They sent us several proofs. They we worked with the printer too. We were terrified because we usually print ourselves, but we're terrified of trusting this like overseas in Germany without like knowing how it's going to come out. But we had like several long sessions with the printer, and he absolutely understood what are our requirements, and we had a couple of back and forth, and it was great.
What's the name of the printer?
It's Kerr Verlag. The printer himself, or the publisher is Kerr Verlag.
Okay. You should also put in the chat room the website and where people can get the book.
Oh,
Okay. Well, maybe.
But you could do that later.
Yeah.
Okay,
We can
yeah.
do it.
Whatever.
Yeah. So
This
this
is
yeah.
this is Tanahat again, and
Just we wanted to show the isolation. When you were asking, like, are those like preserved, or are there villages?
Yeah.
There are no villages around. That's all what they have around. You can see the tiny like buildings on the tiny like
remnants of the buildings.
ruins on the in the landscape. So Armenian monasteries were built of the very organically. So they were built very often from tuff. Tuff is, remember we were talking about the volcano, about Mount Ararat, from which they were taking the stones. Mount Ararat is a volcano. Armenia has several volcanoes on its land. It's a tectonic and volcanic. And very often it was built from tuff, stone of organic origin. It's a pressed volcanic dust. It's porous, light, and hardens with time. And it came in different color. So in this case, it was red.
That's right. That's not in post. This is the actual color of the stone.
Actual color.
And any idea how long it took to build these monasteries?
Well, you see at the very small letters under the name, we write the centuries. It goes
on the left. Okay.
Yeah, on the left, we include just this information goes with every slide. It is from 12th to 14th century.
So some of them were started, very early, and like even St. John's in New York City, they're still not finished, and they started that, So.
Yeah, and they start like their particular. It was very hard to date. Very often they would use some kind of historic references and writings to date the monasteries. Or type of a structure was used at that time.
So this is also, part of the reason that this is the stone part. We've sort of been going over the exterior, the stone part, and the strength and endurance of the stone. Here again, it was built organically. There's several concepts in play here. There's the different color tuff.
On top, you see the black one and yellow one.
Yeah.
On the bottom, if you can find that monastery on the bottom, it's gray, and you can see how it organically accommodates the landscape. It's built very narrowly. The next one image probably gonna show better. So it shows that it's built very narrowly, and one wall of it is the rock.
Right.
And you can also see how they are using the caves. On the top left, you can see the small caves, which they used to use as well as part of the settlement.
And are they like sort of keepers, like the keeper of the monastery in some of these places?
No. There are so many places don't have anything.
Right.
Some of them have they are under protection of church. Some of them just people go and pay pilgrimage there.
Yeah, and they're a little bit neglected, but people still care about them. They still go, and they take care of them as well as they can.
Yeah, and any kind of like a reconstruction takes forever.
Right.
This is Kobayr Monastery, and it was also built on a slope. We just wanted to. It's like a monastery is like growing from their landscape, like part of it, like organic part of it.
So this Kobayr also is it's under a renovation, and the person who is restoring the frescoes is the one who wrote the foreword for our book, Ara Zaryan.
And he was restoring our frescoes here as well.
Mhm. So this, for example, is built on the side of the cliff. This is Gerhard. This is, if, for example, if you go to Armenia, you will go to this place. It's a short drive. And this is one of the more touristy locations. Monks are still there. It's well taken care of. But you can see here on the left, this is still, the caves are there.
Yeah, it was originally built from the cave. It started as a cave and then it was built out. And we actually like to speculate that ideas of organic architecture were borrowed from Armenian monasteries by
Right.
Gaudi and by Frank Lloyd Wright and Kenzo Tange and other big names.
So what's very old is new.
I mean, it's so practical to build them the way they did. They were grabbing the stone right from the side of the hill there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So logical.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the stone in Armenian culture, it was used not only to build, but also it was used to create khachkars. Khachkars, as you see in this image, they are main form of art. They are used to commemorate. Khachkar means, translation is cross stone. They are used to commemorate people, death, events. They would have been used as tombstones. They would commemorate victories, and they are very unique to Armenian culture. And stone in Armenian language carries, probably as in other languages, carries symbolic meaning of strength, permanence, endurance. And it is, and for Armenians, it is seen as a material capable of bearing weight of the history. So when we're in these places, we feel that weight of the history.
Yes, that's right.
Now we look inside, and we look inside the stones.
Inside the stone, and to where the candles are.
Yeah, so monastic grounds, and this is the halls before the church is called narthex or gavit in Armenian. They were used as burial places. The closer you are to altar, they consider it more prestigious burial place because more people would step on your tomb and more people will remember you. So it's kind of like a stone was working as a transactional element between spiritual and between life and death. And when we're photographing these monasteries in 2018-19, those were the times when both of our mothers passed away. They were born 1 week apart and they died 1 year apart. And so they have, when we step inside the church, we connect with them. We felt that connection.
Mm-hmm. And there's a special ambiance when you're in these places and you have that light of the candle.
The light was it was used before only to illuminate, and then that light later became metaphorical, and illumination became also metaphorical.
Mm-hmm. So this is inside the Yeritzvank, where they had that one monastery that was on the edge of the cliff looking over the mountainside.
Describes almost all of them.
Well,
anyway,
it's but this is inside, and you can see it's not well taken care of. In the image on the right, there's holes everywhere. It's stuff growing inside. But on this right picture, you look on the left, and there's a darkened arch. On the left image is what's inside that arch. and people come and they light candles, they leave coins, matches, and it's still used in that way. And we can attest that there is a special feeling of being in the presence of these old places, whether it's a preserved church like Noravank, the previous slide, or this place, in a remote, weathered place that's
Hard to get.
it's hard to get to. It's not doing well, but it's still taken care of.
How do you get to that mental place for you guys? Is it being there for a long period of time and it absorbs your spirit so that when you walk into one of these places, one of the monasteries, you're transcended? How does that work?
I don't know.
Mm.
It just sort of builds up.
Yeah, I can't. It's so natural, Frank. It's like calling. It's like in the blood. It's you get there, and also it's so different. It's like your ancestors are there. When they say that, Armenians say the stone witnessed whatever, stone witnessed the history. You feel it. And especially when you are alone there, you become very humble in the presence of the history.
So, and as an aside, this is also not an easy place to get to. This was a hard to find one.
So you think so? It's part of the experience of getting to these places puts you in another mental state as well.
The journey as well. Yeah, journey itself as well. Journey was part of it as well. But and some touristic places, we wanted to go in the winter when we would be alone, when we can get in that mental state, when we are not like trampled by the crowds of people. We want to have that
Serenity.
as isolation, and we can have that connection without noise.
And how do you get that emotion, that feeling in an image and on a printed page?
Well, that already you have to tell. Do you get that emotion when you look at that image or a printed page?
Okay.
So that's probably on a viewer.
Yeah. Okay.
But we, from a technical standpoint, we try and achieve that with what we're doing through the colors, through the papers, through the, it's not just print on whatever you have laying around. It's conscious choices for how the things are going to be represented, and it's any kind of work is really like that, I would say.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to hear you say it.
So Frank, you earlier asked if those places had if they have service. So what they would usually do is if the place doesn't have any permanent monk or a priest on the premises or like in a closest village, they would invite a priest over and have wedding, funeral, baptism, 3 most important events in their life they would bring and have that in these ancient places. So this is 5th to 7th century cathedral, and it still has that. They still bring weddings here.
Wow.
And Armenian monasteries were mostly decorated interiors, were very austere. They were sparse. Only the northern ones, there were several reasons. Some of them were economic, some of them were ideological. Only the northern ones had frescoes in them. And when there is a story, we're not sure how true it is, but they say that the priest demanded the artist to tone down the colors because it was distracting parishioners from the service. So there you go. Even then, the artist had to tone down their colors to offer that spiritual feel.
Now you're spreading the tale.
Yeah, they are spreading the tale. That's right.
So here,
are these Christian Orthodox churches?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Wow.
This is just a little behind the scenes. This is shot on the cliff of Horomire, the one that had the
Upper and lower.
upper and lower section. It was black
Yeah.
and yellow on the top and the narrow one on the bottom. But we threw this in here.
Yeah, because we were asking how we know about the places, how we find out. Like when you look into the whole list, and that's huge list. Hard to make a decision what to photograph, what not. But people are very often our best guides. So we were already photographing and posting on Instagram, and then out of blue, a guy on Instagram wrote to us. He's like, "Hey, I know such an amazing places you wouldn't even believe. When you come, can you reach out? I'll take you there." So there he is. That took a back shot, and he's standing with me on the edge of a cliff.
And as another side note, the only way to photograph that lower section was to fly the drone over the cliff.
In the winter.
In the winter, I lost the connection a couple of times. It's just a little harrowing.
And that's another friends. They saw us on the.
What's an old university friend?
Yeah, it's old university friend. Her name is also Nune. She saw our images on Facebook, and she reached out and got reconnected, rekindled the friendship, and we couldn't get to these places. So they brought their sub-military grade old villas with the chains and to get us to this amazing landscapes.
And what format are you shooting this?
Different. We recently switched to medium format, but almost all of those were photographed either the highest end drone with the Hasselblad lens on it, or
The
at the
D850.
850s.
I think only the last year we had
Only last year
we had
the
medium format.
And in the winter, how cold is it? Temperature-wise.
Colder than
Very
New York.
cold.
I need a number, Ted.
Like
Very
in the
mean much.
teens, it's in the teens.
minus 15, minus 10 Celsius.
Yeah, so
And no problem with the cameras.
No,
no,
none.
we're well, you saw we were flying the drone, and during a snowstorm, you're not supposed to fly in such cold weather, or definitely not supposed to fly in the rain and the snow, but whatever, you do what you need to get the shot, don't you?
So this is another place which we photographed just because of insistence of my brother, was one of our guides. He is also very invested emotionally in this project, and whenever he was able to, he would come with us. And the Google Maps wasn't much of help. So Google Maps took us to the opposite side of the reservoir, and then we were losing light, and we had to drive back and drive through marshes. It was dark. There was no road anymore. We're like, okay, let's go back, we'll come later. He's like, nope, we're reaching there. So we reach here, we have almost no light. Ted took his phone out, and he was creating for me light so I can focus on something. It's a long exposure, that's why it looks a lot brighter.
So I thought Nune was stubborn, but you should meet her brother. Jeez.
This is Gandzasar Monastery. This was photographed between two storms.
The story here, after we photographed here, we were driving back to the Armenian area. This is in Artsakh, and you use 911, you call them and you ask them, how are the roads? And they tell you, so we called them, they said the roads were open to where we needed to go. So we're getting on the road, and about half an hour later, Nune gets a call from some unknown number. It's the 911 people. They're saying, "Are you the ones that called us about half an hour ago?" Yes, that's us. Well, the roads are closed. So,
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. The nice thing is like how we get all, how we find places and how people just help.
Mhm.
People who we know and who we don't.
And when you go, how long do you go? Like, do you plan to shoot? You say we're going to go for a month. We're going to go for 2 months. How
Yeah,
does that work?
it is like every time it's at least 3 weeks.
At least 3 weeks. Okay.
Every time.
It's
yeah.
usually 3 weeks of shooting, but when I don't think we've gone for less than 3 weeks, but
Yeah.
so we went almost 2 months this year to shoot Eastern Turkey. So that's another story. But, we spent about a month in Turkey and about almost a month in Armenia.
Let me ask you this, and I asked this question also to the photojournalist in the same vein. So there you are for 3 weeks in these remote places, the most beautiful places in the world, right? These vistas, these locations, and then 10 hours later, you're in Manhattan. How is that for you?
Well, it's not 10 hours.
Well, whatever it is. Within 24 hours, you're home.
It's I don't know. It's kind of strange, I'd say.
It's very strange, yes. It's very strange. It takes some time to decompress because you are so involved in it and so invested emotionally in it that you just need some time to digest and get back. We're usually saying after this we need some vacation.
Yeah, it's because it's a lot of work. But when we shot this last one in February 2020, afterward we went to Moscow. Nune's brother lives there, and we visited him, and we started talking that we knew this was the last shoot, and we were going to do the book after, because that's what we wanted, one more winter session.
Yeah.
And then we got the idea that we were going to shoot Turkey, and
because of the history, because Turkey is a land where there are still like a multitude of Armenian monasteries okay, that's a different story. Maybe we will come back when it's ready.
But this is just another example of a remote area that was
hiking. There was no any kind of driving possible.
Not for us anyway.
And that's the book.
That's the book. So 112 pages, 40 locations, 86 images.
It is organized by not the same way as this presentation. Presentation has some images which are not there, and also it is we try to not go with this same way. It has
different
organization from north to south, so we could cover the map and have it more like a logical presentation, the book.
And then this is
and this is our upcoming show. That's the tests behind us are for our upcoming show.
Right.
There's going to be September 23rd. Everybody is welcome to attend, whoever can. But before wrapping this up, there is a little bit more to share.
So it's a sad situation in Artsakh. It's a pressing issue. So we mentioned a couple of times that we were making our last shoot in February 2020.
Just to clarify, Artsakh is Artsakh is the Armenian word. For the rest of the world, it is known as Nagorno-Karabakh. And now you may figure out where we're going. So
we were lucky to be there and photograph these places before COVID hit. And then that fall was when they had a 44-day war, and Azerbaijan took back huge swaths of area under them. And then we can't get to these places. This is Dadivank. It's now under the protection of Russian peacekeepers.
The sad part is that they are stripping the Armenian heritage. and it is claimed to be Caucasian Albanian. They are stripping off the Armenian writings, Armenian Khachkar. This is kind of characteristic behavior, because Armenians lost whole other cemetery was bulldozed.
Of Khachkars, the largest Khachkars in the world, the largest collection of Khachkars in the world.
10,000 Khachkars were bulldozed. This is the small church, 19th century church. And you remember when we were talking that monasteries were protecting people and their heritage. But right now, when you look at it, it looks like we need to protect these monasteries. It's time for people to protect these monasteries. This is the image of the same church right now, just like 2 years after.
They took off the top.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is Gaziantep Cathedral, which was, it has, the history is longer. It was damaged during 1920 pogroms against the cities Armenians by Azerbaijan, and it experienced a decade-long decline. When Armenians, when the first Nagorno-Karabakh war started, Azeris were storing ammunition in the cathedral because they knew that Armenians would never hurt it. So when it was retaken, it was restored to its former beauty, and then it changed hands again. And this is the state of it right now. And the prelacy is very concerned that they are just turning it into mosque. They are changing the history. And now it's not even, today we're not even worried about the architecture so much, because this is the situation with Artsakh right now. And Artsakh is under siege.
They've blocked all transport of food, medicine. They're cutting off energy supplies when they can. There was a hearing just today.
Congressional hearing. They Luis Moreno Ocampo, he is the former chief prosecutor of criminal court. He presented all the evidence that it is genocide in making right now. And it is the matter of putting the honor and people's lives, make it more important than oil of Azerbaijan. That's what it all comes to.
Yeah, totally.
So, and here we're ending on this. The inside is the outside. This is.
And this is the last slide, where the interior became an exterior, and we're all connected inside out.
Inside out, that's for sure.
And that's our website at tedanune.com.
We can put it in
we
the
can
chat.
put it in the chat.
Yeah, put everything there. That's really great work. Thank you so much. I mean, everyone in the chat room is just loving it. So where do you go from here with a project like that? And when do you know that it's over? When do you know that you're finished? A couple of questions in one.
You published the book.
We published the book. It was for us kind of like stop sign, like we are done with this part. And it was emotional, I think. We reached the emotional condition when we felt like the project is finished. We're not historians. We're not trying to cover every single place. We're trying to bring the idea and deliver the visual story. And we thought that what we did was enough to deliver the visual story. Also, that was another reason why we don't have like a heavy historic text in it. We thought that it wouldn't make justice if it was just images. That's why we did the research. We wrote that little introduction about every place. But I think it was just, I can't explain. We just finished.
Yeah, yeah. And what is the line for you as it relates to advocacy, to getting the message out, and how long does that continue? Is that a life's work? Because I mean, of course, it's close to your heart, right? In every way. And the book is now done. What you know, what do you do with that passion?
Well, we did tell that we went and we were planning like 2 years ago to go to Anatolia, Eastern Armenia, which was Eastern Turkey, which was historic Armenian homeland. And we came back shaken.
Yeah, it's a very different experience.
Because you see here the monasteries abandoned or in this condition where interior is exterior, but you see the respect. You see the altar is untouched. Whatever is done by time, not by people, not by state. But people go there and pay respect. People bring candles and flowers.
Oh,
in Turkey,
they dig holes at the altar looking for gold, or they tear up the grave sites looking for treasure. And when you go to these places, they just destroy them with intent, and it's very sad. They take the stones from the monasteries and they for other construction. They use them as stables. Yeah. We can present those at some point. That was the most startling thing, I think. And they're also so we went in June, and a lot of these places, they were very difficult to get to.
That's when we were actually not only hiking, we were camping, because if we wanted to shoot proper light, we had to stay there. It was impossible to get.
Right. And so the level of effort, concerted, intentional effort that it took to destroy these places it's hard to fathom, really.
There are like only 2 locations in Turkey which are preserved and renovated by state and by World Heritage organizations. One is ancient city of Ani, which is absolutely stunning place. It is, you go there and you feel like you are in a movie. And another one is
I'd say one of the really interesting things about the city of Ani is there's still one structure left over from the pagan times.
Yeah.
It's
wow.
So, and the another one was the church in island of Ahtamar. But the downside of this renovation is, again, it's the same policy. Armenian is being stripped of the heritage. They present the history differently. They twist it, and it just hurts.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, you have these villages in these places that you can barely get to. It'll take you an hour to get there on a horse, and why are they driving these people away? It's just you can't understand what.
Another thing, the more they stay the same. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's happening today. It's yeah. It's there. It's I don't know. We're supposed to be enlightened by now, but I guess we're just not.
It's yeah, and what's the impetus behind destroying the monasteries? Who's doing it? Is that like Russian generated? I mean, where is that coming from?
Oh, it's
in Turkey or in Azerbaijan?
In Azerbaijan.
In Azerbaijan, it's Azerbaijan which is destroying the state.
Yeah.
Armenia was always kind of a buffer between Russia and Turkey, Russia and Azerbaijan. Armenia borders Iran and Azerbaijan, Georgia. It was more often under the protection of Russia than anybody else. If it hadn't been for the Russians after World War I, who knows what, they probably wouldn't have anything right now.
And then when the new president came with his idea of democracy, Russia is like, oh, okay, you go do whatever you want. And then Azerbaijan invaded using the chance that Russia is, honestly, they don't even give a damn about Armenians. This is politics. I just don't want to go there.
Yeah, I have to say, Jamie really hit it on the head. Tribal hatreds are as old as history.
Yeah, that's it. It's a lot more than tribal hatreds, and it's like it's instilled with the state hatred, because right now there's a huge, not right now, it's been several years, there's a huge Armenophobia policy going in Azerbaijan.
Yeah, they teach the children in the classrooms about hating. It's not a
Armenians head.
Yeah. So what's up next for you guys? What do you, I mean, aside from, settling in and relaxing, the book is done, what do you have the next project?
Well,
we have two projects, a few projects.
Yeah. Well, we have the Turkey that we're going to be working on.
We need to digest first.
Yeah, and we're actually planning to go back in February to Turkey to shoot in the winter.
Okay, great.
So,
and then another one is industrial project, which is a little bit like all over the place. So we need a good reviewer.
Yeah, that's right.
To help us through, and that is the other project which we are working. It's industrial machines, it's industrial landscape, it's about the modern landscape. Wherever you look, it's industrial. You can't get away with it. Starting from the power lines and the quarries and everything else, it's our changed landscape.
We haven't quite figured out how to present it yet, though.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're not finished shooting.
Right. If anyone else has any questions, you could raise your hand or put it in the chat box. But I have to tell you, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you guys coming in and doing this. Really, I'm sure for most of us, you've enlightened us. Gave us a little bit of a history lesson that we all always need to learn something new, right? Something new about something old, right? Because it's all history.
It is all history, and we do appreciate that you gave us a platform to speak, because that's like when you are saying what's next, like next is to use this book as a little bit of a window into the Armenian history, for easy window, not like historically heavy.
Well, as you guys know, you always have a place to present here. You know that's a standing offer.
Thank you, Frank.
Beautiful presentation.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, we can unmute everybody. There's stuff on.
I just wanted to say, in terms of the artistic aspect of it, I really love that you shot a lot of it in the snow and in the winter. It gives the whole series it's like really one piece, and put that in the chat. I've seen the book. It's just really stunning, and it really draws you into this area, which most of us know nothing about, really. I mean, I know a little about the history because I grew up in Germany, so we're a little closer. But basically, you have no idea, So this really, really gets you there. I think that's a huge talent to from an artistic point of view, to accomplish that. So I really love that work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Stefan did that for a lot of us. That was good. So we thank you very much, and you guys get the last word as we send everyone to their evening.
Contact your congressman. Yeah, tell them.
Yeah.
The Magnitsky Act should be in place.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like we can write Anka. It's anka.org.
All right.
You can reach. You can put it in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll put that last thing in the chat.
Okay.
That's the Armenian group, and they are.
ANCA.org is the Armenian American Armenian Association, which is giving a voice and pushing American government to take action. And every little word, every little voice matters. And thank you so much, all of you, for being here. And
Thank you.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
Thank you, and thank you, Frank.
Yes, thanks, Frank.
Mhm.
That was the easy part.
You are the best.
So,
Excellent.
we thank you very much for enlightening us, and we appreciate. And like I said, you guys always have a standing offer to to come back and enlighten us again. And like I said earlier on, it was a pity that Ken got sick, so he wasn't able to present tonight. But we will get him back. So that's actually Ken in the chat room. So I'll read. I apologize for getting attacked with vertigo today. Anchored down for sure, but happy to see you both and your work today. See you next time. Well done. So I didn't realize that was Ken. So that's Ken who was.
looking forward to his presentation
Yes.
too.
Yes. And we will see Ken and other really wonderful photojournalists the week of September 18th through the 22nd as we do our 11th week on the Ukrainian crisis. So thank you, everyone.